So I come out of my house, and there's like this helicopter flying overhead, and I just jokingly like said to myself, "Oh no, it's Richard Bruce," type of thing. It's because I posted that music review religion guy. Sometimes these thoughts get in my head and they just take on a life of their own. And then I imagine Richard Bruce is actually flying the helicopter. And he's got he has a megaphone. "Don't post videos of reptilian entities." And he's got like "Don't Stop Believing." He's blasting out of the helicopter. "You're going to find yourself in serious trouble." Sometimes these things, like, I'll just get these dumb thoughts in my head, and then they take on a life of their own. This has manifested itself or continued into writing songs or tracking songs with friends of mine, like joke songs related to whatever stupid idea pops into my head. But yeah, I don't know what that's all about. So now I can't get that vision out of my head of Richard Bruce flying down the helicopter with a megaphone. With "Don't Stop Believing" fucking cranking. Speaking of cranking music, I'm in my in the bathroom. This morning doing bathroom stuff. And I have my my player going. I was going through some new releases because today is new release day. As far as stuff on streaming services and whatever. New release day, it's not what I was going to say. So I'm going through all this stuff, and every once in a while there'll be something. It's usually not a lot. It's usually a couple cool things and 1,500 hip-hop albums. But I stopped on this Humble Pie greatest hits thing. I never got into Humble Pie. I mean, I understand their importance and everything, and but I've never even did I never did much of an investigation at all. I know Peter Frampton was in it. Paul Stanley talks about them quite a bit. But so it's a new greatest hits album collection that they put out of 70s songs, And I'm listening to it. It's playing in the other room, and then this track comes on with these female vocalists from Motown called the Blackberries. And when that track came on, it's like the door was open, but imagine the door closed. It's like they kicked the door down and fucking immobilized me. I'm like, holy shit, what is that? The sound they make is incredible. It just went above all the music that was being played. And it was like a missile came in that bathroom and hit me. Like I expected to happen in January of a couple of years ago. But yeah, man. It's funny what music can do to you. And most times, good or bad, is doing it without your permission, unfortunately. Because the way evil works with these contracts, everything's contract. Everything's terms and conditions. And as long as you agree to the contract, they feel they can just manipulate you after the fact. The contract is the piece of media, and if you're listening to it or you're watching it, you've acquiesced to their contract, and at that point they feel they're cosmically in the clear to manipulate you in whatever way they want. And there's a long history with music manipulation on people and the dark arts that are used behind the scenes on that stuff. It's absolutely affecting you in different ways because, as I say all the time, everything here is a frequency. Music is made for frequency, pretty much. I mean, it's designed to sound good, for its frequency to sound good. Where sometimes you'll pick up things, like I always say, how you could tell, or sometimes you could tell when someone's lying to you. You don't know how, you just know it. It's not the person really that you're keying into. It's that you're keying into the fact that the lie is a frequency, because lies have a different frequency than truth, and you're picking that up somehow. And adversely, the same thing, how you can pick up when you think someone's being honest with you, or you just know, like, I trust this person. It's a frequency that you're detecting, and that you're sussing out from all the other stuff, because you're being bombarded with frequency. We're frequency, you know. In this body, we can only see a very small band of frequency here, while in this in the human suit. But a small band of frequency in a world of frequency is still absolutely overwhelming. And it can be overwhelming for some people. Like, you know, that's why you have people that can't leave their homes, you know, due to social anxiety. It's being bombarded with frequencies that you're having trouble parsing out, and it's overwhelming. I had that problem talked about before with getting on a bus. Like, I get on a bus, and if there's too many people on it, I just become paralyzed. It's just too much. You know, I've had to get off at bus stops. Luckily here in Hawaii, it's like everything is close. You know, so I could get off a bus anywhere and be back here, you know, in short time. In fact, the public transportation here is awesome. It's constantly running. You never have to wait too long for the next bus to show up. And they go everywhere. They stop everywhere. The problem with that is, like for me, when I first got here, and I'd go to Chinatown quite a bit, because there's a lot of interesting stuff down there, occult-wise and just history-wise. It's a really interesting place, and the fact that I haven't brought you guys down there with me in the past couple of years is criminal, but I'll have to do it soon. I like going with someone else, though. You know, I can't. The thing is, like, a lot of times when you walk around with the camera talking, it's easy to become distracted. I have all the security moving in my head, but it's hard to become. It's easy to become distracted. Just like now, I'm off the music thing. You know, but getting back to that, there's some really weird testimonials from people who worked in the music industry. There's this one guy that turned preacher now that said they used to take the master tapes and do some kind of ritual with them to program into them these negative entities or thought forms or whatever they were doing. I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, this guy's crazy. You know, this is absolutely crazy. Now it's like, oh yeah, I'm sure, absolutely. I'm sure that must pass through several things. Because whatever they can do to that frequency, I mean, especially if it's a hit song, that thing's going on the radio, it's being broadcast, it's reaching all these ears. And that's why the music business used to be so important, because there wasn't a lot of other media around. You know, you didn't have the internet, you know, when obviously recorded music started appearing. So they put much more of an importance on using that as a message delivery system to control minds. You know, at the end of the day, it's all mind control. Yeah, they're gonna put negative things in it to make you feel a certain way. It's all mind control. Now, when we say mind control too, that's erroneous, because the mind, as I've gone on here ad nauseum, that doesn't have a lot to do with you. It has a lot to do with the suit. It keeps the suit moving. The mechanics of the suit are dependent on the mind. But what they refer to a lot of times when they're talking about the mind is you. The electromagnetic energy that's in this human suit, that is actually you. It's got nothing to do with your mind. Now, that's why I try to call it the brain instead of the mind even. But what the brain does is it can, like in computer terms, how it can, like if you don't clean out your cache on your OS, it builds up little pieces of information so that when you return to that website or app or whatever, it doesn't have to reload a lot of information. It keeps in local user side cache. Your brain does the same thing. It can store memories, you know, on your user side, and that can hurt you too. Like when you see something violent, they said if you see a murder on a television show, your cortisol levels can jump up and stay up there for 3 days, because to you it's like you've witnessed a murder. You know, when the memory is saved, right? It's not saving the memory of the context of how you've seen it. Like, it's not saving the television set, your friends sitting around, or the movies or whatever. It's saving the images. So in your mind, it's stored that the image of someone getting killed. It doesn't differentiate. It doesn't differentiate between the actual murder and you watching a fictional murder. It just keeps the murder. So you think of how many times you've seen someone get killed on a show or TV, and that's why violence is so ubiquitous and passable when it comes to stuff like that. You can even, like, you know, all ages TV shows, you see people getting shot. You know, it's all in there for a reason, and it's never been stopped for that reason. Now, when you have your cortisol levels jacked up for up to 3 days, what it does is it puts you in a sort of fight or flight situation, and it makes you anxiety-ridden, which is a perfect state for control. They want to control you that way. So yeah, music, there used to be a lot more emphasis put on how it's presented to people, what's done to it. I'm sure, even though it's not as important as a media dispersal method for them, I'm sure the technology has gotten to a point where they could still do the same amount of pausing, you know, of the stuff, P-O-Z-D-I-N-G, with minimal effort, compared relatively to how they used to do it. So it's probably still all in there. And some of it, you know, it can trigger good things in you too. It's not all bad. Because they don't really, even though they aim for certain emotions or they send out certain frequencies, they can only put it out. How it's interpreted by you when it gets to you is a lot different. They don't have control over that. So sometimes you can get good messages out of bad and vice versa. Something like the Killing Joke band, that shit could be fucking dangerous to people. They use gematria in that. An early review for them for their second album, I think it was The NME, was saying it was really great, it was genius, but morally it's not very great, and it could be damaging to you. He saw what was happening. But for me, or for anyone that's kind of dabbled in these things or trying to understand these things, what's up, man? To me, it's like I can get insights about it, not good or bad, just sometimes just insights. It's to the point where it's like sometimes I listen to their stuff and I'm like, man, I could have used this. I could have used this at 20. You know, it's great. It's great. Like, I could use it at 30. Could use it at 40. I always liked them. I was always a fan, but I'd never done the deep obsessive dive that I do sometimes with bands. For instance, like a Triumph, a Canadian hard rock trio. I like them. Could probably name all their albums. Let me see. Just a Game. Yeah. I could name all their albums. I know their songs, like, you know, the bigger ones, and I like them. But I've never done that deep obsessive dive on them. That's how I was with Killing Joke a couple of years ago. I was a fan. I liked them. I think I even described myself as more of a casual fan the first time I did a review of them. But after I started doing more reviews and a couple more videos and looking into Jazz Coleman, I became like completely obsessed with them. And now I'm a much more intense fan. Probably qualify as a gatherer. But their stuff is designed from them in a certain way, so that, as I was saying, when someone puts something out, they sometimes can't control how it is when it gets to you, how it's interpreted when it gets to you. They make sure that that stuff has as much potency that when it reaches you, we got a ghost problem here? Sometimes people do this. That your variables, your reality bubbles or person bubble variables aren't going to mean much, because it's so so potent what they've done. I mean, they use black magic, you know, to do it. There's a thing here in Hawaii. I call it ghosting. Traffic ghosting, where you just be walking on the road and someone will just pull up like right beside you and just start moving with you. Now, almost every time, this isn't something they're purposely doing. It's just, a lot of times when I finally snap, like, what the fuck are you doing? It's usually some old man, some old Asian man with the windows rolled up and his mask on and goggles, staring at me terrified. And again, I mean, there's that low-level hypnotism here where no one knows where the fuck they're going at any time. When someone's driving around me, I call it an active driver. Try to get the fuck out of the way, because you can't figure out where they're going. They'll look like they're going one way, and then the next thing they're on the sidewalk with you. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, the music can do stuff to you, you know, that you don't know it's doing to you. I don't know what the answer is for that. I don't know if there is an answer. I don't know if there is something you can do to mitigate that. I think, like a lot of things, though, just being aware of it protects you quite a bit. You know, I've said before that knowing's 100% of the battle. Because sometimes just knowing that there's a trick involved, even if you don't know the mechanics of the trick, you're still protected on some level. It doesn't have to be the assistant handing the magician the rabbit example. It could be a lot more subtle. You don't have to know the intricacies of the frequencies that are around you. You just have to know that they're around you. And sometimes your brain, not your mind, can begin to suss that out for you. And then you, as whatever the real you is, the electromagnetic energy that's inside you, that will suss it out too. I made some notes about that. Of course, I really can't grab them now. And again, like explaining all these concepts and talking about them, it would be much easier if I was just sitting at a chair talking into the camera. Because being out here, I got 100 different security programs running and directional programs running, and sometimes it's easy to lose control of a narrative or a concept or conversation. But it's much more entertaining, I think, than staring at me sitting in a chair. That'll get fucking old real fast. That'd be a good way to go to sleep. And plus, this is, I think, good practice to try to, it's a concentration type practice to try to, be able to continue to speak and have to deal with, this, right? It's good practice. Don't blame the teacher, blame the school.